Hello, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing Monday and welcome to the Reality Bang. I'm RJ Johan, your host for this session, and thank you for tuning in. That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. So, for this edition of the Reality Bang, let's talk about mental health. And of course, we have Miss Susan George here with us. So, before we start, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction on Miss Susan. So, Miss Susan George is an accomplished academic professional and the current head of Department of Social Work in the Global School of Counselling, Bangalore. With a strong foundation in social work and expertise in human resource management, she is dedicated to integrating these principles, these disciples, to foster holistic development and address societal changes. It's great to have you on the show, ma'am.
Thank you.
So let's jump right into it. So my very first question is now, why do we often, take physical health seriously, like only after an illness, but we wait for a breakdown to, take place before we start caring about our mental health?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Mental health is a topic that's close to all of our lives, yet it's something we often don't give enough attention to. And I'm happy to be here to discuss how we can better care for ourselves and those around us. Whether we realize it or not, our mental well being influences how we think, how we feel, and how we relate to others and navigate life every single day. So, moving on to your question, it highlights a pattern in how we treat ourselves. Like, think about it, if you have a fever, or a broken bone, or a severe cough, most of us rush to the doctor.
Yeah,
Why? Because physical symptoms are visible, they are measurable, and socially acknowledged by people around us. And pain is something which is immediate and undeniable. But contrast that with mental health, stress, anxiety, low mood, or burnout often build up quietly without outward signs. So many of us normalize these feelings as just part of life. So telling ourselves, okay, everyone is busy, it's fine, or I'll rest later. But by the time we notice something serious, we may already be in crisis.
yeah,
So I remember a young professional I worked with. She had been pushing herself non-stop with like late nights, endless deadlines, skipping meals, skipping breaks, and all under the impression that this was just hard work. And one morning, she found herself sitting on the floor of her apartment, crying uncontrollably, unable to leave for work. So
mm,
that moment of breakdown was the first real signal that her health had been ignored for too long. So the difference is physical illness triggers immediate action because it's visible. Meanwhile, mental distress is invisible, and socially we haven't been taught to recognize or prioritize it. So the solution could be thinking of mental health like a preventive care, just like we brush our teeth daily or we exercise regularly or we can do small, so likewise we can do small consistent things for our mind, like daily mindfulness or meditation, even for like 5 to 10 minutes, or journaling our thoughts or emotions to process them, checking in with our friends or family regularly about how we are feeling or how they are feeling, and recognizing early signs of stress, like maybe it's irritability or fatigue or sleeplessness, and taking actions early. So
yeah,
it's about creating a habit of mental hygiene, not waiting for a breakdown. So if we start seeing mental health as equally important as physical health, we can prevent crisis rather than only reacting to them.
yeah. Now, in families or communities, where mental health isn't talked about, like how can, somebody begin to break the silence without being judged? Because we know, like, in a social setting, like, a lot of people are judged, like, once they talk about, like, hey, I'm not feeling good or I'm having certain mental health issues. So, how do we break that silence?
Breaking the silence in communities where mental health is a taboo can feel
Hmm,
scary. But it's possible with small steps. The
hmm,
first thing to know is that you don't have to start big. You can start by creating micro moments of openness. For example, sharing an article or a video about stress or anxiety, or commenting on a movie or book that touches on mental health,
hmm,
or
hmm.
few words like I have been feeling a bit stressed lately as a gentle way to open dialogue. So, the key is to find safe people to start with, someone who will listen without judgment. Maybe a close friend of yours, or a sibling, or a teacher, or a mentor at work. So, I know a woman who began by posting mental health content in her family WhatsApp group. So initially, nobody responded to that, but after a few weeks, her father privately messaged saying, I didn't know I was feeling anxiety until I read that.
Hmm,
Thank you
hmm.
for sharing. So that single step opened the door to honest conversations in the family.
Yeah.
And another practical approach is to normalize mental health indirectly. Like ask questions like, have you ever felt overwhelmed and not known what to do? Or how do you deal with stress at work or school? So you will be surprised how even small questions invite others to share.
Hmm, hmm.
And it's also important to remember that breaking silence takes patience. And cultural change doesn't happen overnight, but every small, authentic conversation chips away at stigma.
Yeah.
And over time, these moments add up, creating a culture where emotions can be shared openly without the fear of judgment.
Yeah. Now, how can, we tell if, solitude is helping us heal or it's turning into isolation? Because many people believe like, okay, if I'm going through something, why can't I, be alone? And how do we know if that's, healing the person, or it's just like, completely isolating them from other people and making it a lot worse?
Okay. Solitude and isolation often looks similar externally,
Hmm,
but the difference is profound. So
yeah.
solitude is something which is very intentional. It's when you choose to spend time alone to recharge or reflect
Hmm,
or
hmm,
do something, and you come out of it feeling refreshed, calmer, and more in touch with yourself.
yeah.
Whereas isolation happens when withdrawal is not a choice, but a result of being disconnected or overwhelmed or a feeling of hopeless. So you may come out of it feeling drained, anxious, or even lonely. So a practical self check can be done by asking yourself, do I feel restored or drained after spending time alone? And if you feel lighter, inspired, or more focused, it's healing solitude. If you feel emptier or anxious, it may be sliding into isolation.
Yeah.
So, for example, a college student who loves sketching. So, she
Hmm,
spends hours alone painting and journaling. And after these sessions, she feels calm and energized. That's solitude.
hmm,
But the same time, the same student who avoids classes, calls, and messages for days, feeling anxious about facing people, that is isolation.
hmm, hmm.
So, if you notice solitude is sliding towards isolation, it's important that you schedule small interactions with your friends and family, or take short walks, or attend some community events, or reach out to someone you trust just to spend time or to talk.
Hmm, hmm.
So, solitude is a gift when chosen by ourselves, but isolation is often a cry for help. And recognizing the difference can prevent mental health crisis and help maintain healthy relationship with yourself and others.
Yeah. Now, when somebody opens up about their struggles and they feel like they're in a very dark place, now we may not be able to relate to their situation or, fully understand their perspective, but like we care for them and we want to show them we care. So, and want to be present, of course. So, how can we support them in that moment?
Okay. This is one of the most meaningful aspects of mental health because it reminds us that caring doesn't mean we have to have all the answers. So when someone tells us that they are struggling, our first instinct is often to fix it, to give advice, and to cheer them up.
Hmm.
But so we might say things like, don't worry, it will be okay, or you will get through this. So we say these things with love, but the person may not feel truly heard.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, empathy, on the other hand, is about being present, not solving the problem. So, it's about holding space for someone to feel their emotions without judgment. Simple phrases like, I may not fully understand, but I'm here with you. Or it sounds really heavy, thank you for sharing with me. Or I'm listening, take your time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So these statements communicate care and presence more powerfully than solutions ever can.
Hmm.
Sometimes even silence can be supportive. Just sitting with someone, making them a cup of coffee or tea, or holding their hand can say, you are not alone. So, presence is a form of empathy that often goes unrecognized, but it's incredibly healing.
Yeah.
So I once knew a young man who had been struggling with feelings of failure after losing a job. And
Hmm.
he felt like he couldn't talk to anyone, that no one would understand his situation. But another friend of his didn't try to give advices or offer quick fixes. He simply sat with him, listened, and occasionally said, I'm here.
Hmm.
That small, consistent support helped him feel seen and less isolated at that point of time. So, over time, he began opening up more and even sought professional help, something he hasn't considered before.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what can we take from this? Like, listen first, talk later, don't rush to solve their problem, and
Hmm.
you will have to always validate their feelings and check in regularly. Empathy is not a one time action, it's an ongoing care.
Hmm.
And it has to offer support, not judgment.
Yeah.
And be patient with silence, and sometimes just your presence is enough. And you don't have to have gone through the same thing to be supportive. You only need to care enough to be present. That's
Hmm.
empathy in its most genuine form.
Yeah.
So, next time someone shares their struggle, pause, breathe, and respond with presence and patience. This simple act can mean more than a thousand pieces of advice.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, coming to my final question. Now, if somebody is having, inner struggles that they may want to talk about, but, don't have the resources available to them. Now, what resources are available to help them? And like, as a community, what can we do to, create a safer and a more supportive environment for those going through such difficult times?
This is really important because so many people struggle in silence simply because they don't know where to turn.
Yeah.
Um, I would say, firstly, if someone is going through a tough time and doesn't have access to therapy or counseling, it's crucial to know that help is always available in many forms.
Yeah.
So, most countries, including India, have free confidential helplines that are available 24/7. And they are staffed by trained professionals who can listen and guide you. For instance, we have Astra and Nimhans has an helpline. Those
Hmm.
are resources for immediate emotional support. And many NGOs and collectives provide safe space for people to talk, share their experiences, and receive peer support. And
Hmm.
these can be life saving for people who are isolated.
Yeah.
And sometimes teachers, mentors, if it's in a workplace, the HR professional, or community leaders can act as bridges to professional help.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
talking to someone you trust is a first step towards support.
Okay.
And now, thinking about the community aspect of it. So,
Hmm.
mental health is not just the responsibility of therapists, it's a shared responsibility. So, we
Hmm. Hmm.
can create safe, supportive spaces by asking or normalizing conversations like, are you okay? And
Hmm.
listening without judgment. So, even small conversations like this can make someone feel less alone.
Hmm.
Then schools, workplaces, and community centers can include sessions on emotional literacy, stress management, and coping strategies,
Hmm,
which reduces these knowledge will reduce fear and stigma.
hmm, hmm,
Leaders, parents, teachers, anyone in a guiding role can show that it's okay to seek help, saying, I have struggled too and I have sought help,
hmm,
which helps people feel understood and less ashamed of seeking help.
hmm, hmm,
And workplaces can have mental health check ins. Schools can have counselors, communities can have helpline numbers and support groups. So, small infrastructure changes can make a huge difference.
hmm, hmm,
So let me give you an example. A small company
hmm.
once noticed that their employees were showing signs of burnout and stress,
Okay.
and but nobody spoke about it.
Hmm,
So instead of waiting that to be led to a crisis situation, the management introduced weekly check-in hours where
hmm,
employees could talk about their feelings anonymously or with the HR. So
hmm,
over
hmm,
time, people began sharing more openly, and even informal peer support networks formed.
hmm.
And that simple initiative created a sense of psychological safety where people felt cared for and supported before things became critical.
Mhm,
So what we can do, or what each one of us can do today, is reach out to someone who might be struggling and listen without judgment and share mental health resources in your community
hmm,
and advocate for spaces where emotional well-being is prioritized in schools, workplaces, and in social circles.
hmm, hmm,
So mental health thrives when we collectively create environment that are safe, empathetic, and supportive.
hmm.
And compassion is contagious. When one person reaches out, it encourages others to do the same. So
Yeah.
that ripple effect strengthens the entire community.
Hmm, hmm. And with that being said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show. A huge thank you to Miss Susan for joining today's show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And remember, guys, we air on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, having to say, I just want to tell us what an amazing job you're doing. You can reach out to us at 6364252164. And a huge thank you to our listeners for tuning into this edition of the Reality Bang, your weekly dose of youth power, brought to you by FIBO Online. This is RJ Johan. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you next Monday. God bless you.